Have you ever caught a faint, unfamiliar scent on your pillow, your shirt collar, or even in the air around you, and wondered quietly, is that me? If you have, you're not alone. And today, we're going to talk about something most people never but everyone should. Hello and welcome to Elderly Care, where we explore the real questions of aging with honesty, warmth, and dignity. My name is Dr. Winston. I've spent over 30 years working with older adults, not just treating their illnesses, but listening to their stories just like yours. In this video, I'll gently walk you through 5 surprising places on the body that most people forget to clean, and how these tiny oversights might be silently causing discomfort or even embarrassment, especially as we age. But don't worry, we're not here to judge, we're here to rediscover something often lost with time. Comfort, confidence, and a quiet kind of self-respect. So, if you're ready, let's begin. It often starts as something subtle, a faint smell, a feeling of discomfort you can't quite place. You might check your laundry, your shoes, even the fridge, until one day you begin to wonder, could it be coming from me? This quiet question is one many older adults carry, though few speak aloud, and not because of carelessness. In truth, aging bodies are complex. Our skin changes, we sweat differently, our flexibility may not be what it once was. Certain areas become harder to reach, harder to feel, and over time, easier to overlook. Dr. Winston, a geriatric specialist with decades of experience, once shared this. Most people take pride in being clean, but the truth is, there are places on the body that even the most meticulous person can forget, especially as we age. Let's walk gently through 5 of those places. Each one might seem small, but when we give them the care they deserve, the difference can be profound, not just in how we smell, but in how we feel about ourselves. The first spot, behind the ears. It's a quiet place, almost hidden in plain sight. When we wash our faces or shampoo our hair, it's easy to skip the area right behind the ears. But this skin is oil-rich, and in older adults, it often accumulates sebum, sweat, and residue from hair products. Over time, if left unwashed, it can develop a distinct sour smell, one that clings to pillows, scarves, or shirt collars. Dr. Winston explains that behind the ear odor is one of the most common causes of what people describe as a musty or old smell. But it's also one of the easiest to resolve. A warm cloth, gentle soap, and just a few extra seconds of attention each day can quietly restore freshness and, more importantly, self-assurance. The second spot? The navel. The belly button is often forgotten, partly because it's so familiar and partly because we assume it stays clean during a shower. But the navel, especially if it's deep or has folds, can trap sweat, lint, dead skin, and bacteria. Left unchecked, it can produce a surprisingly strong odor. For seniors who may have looser skin or deeper navels due to weight loss or abdominal changes, this area needs gentle care. Use a damp cotton swab once or twice a week, Dr. Winston advises. Avoid harsh scrubbing, but don't avoid it entirely. One older woman, Margaret, shared that for years she couldn't place where a certain sour smell was coming from. When her caregiver finally helped her clean her navel properly, the mystery disappeared overnight. I was shocked, she laughed, but also relieved. I wasn't doing anything wrong, I just didn't know. The third place we often forget, underneath, skin folds. Even those who have always been slim may develop small folds under the arms, around the belly, beneath the breasts, or along the groin. These areas are warm, often moist, and get very little airflow. That makes them a perfect environment for bacteria and yeast to grow, and for odor to linger. Cleaning underfolds isn't just about smell. It's about preventing irritation, rashes, and infections like intertrigo. But because these areas are sensitive, they require a soft, deliberate touch, not vigorous scrubbing. Dr. Winston suggests using a clean, damp cloth, followed by thorough drying with a soft towel. For those prone to sweating, a light dusting of medicated powder can help. But the most important part, he says, is not to ignore it out of embarrassment. There's nothing shameful about the way your body changes. What matters is that you respond with kindness and care. The fourth hidden spot, perhaps the most intimate and least talked about, lies between the toes. For many older adults, especially those who struggle with bending down or who experience reduced flexibility, this area is often neglected during showers. We wash our feet, yes, but often we stop at the tops or the soles. The spaces between the toes, however, are small crevices where moisture lingers and air circulation is minimal. Over time, this dampness becomes fertile ground for bacteria and fungus. The result? A sour, yeasty odor that clings, sometimes accompanied by itching or cracked skin. Dr. Winston explained that aging feet need special care, not just because of odor, but also because the skin becomes more vulnerable. Fungal infections like athlete's foot aren't just for gym goers. They're quite common in seniors, especially when the spaces between toes remain moist and unclean. It's not about scrubbing hard, he said. It's about using a soft cloth, taking the time, and then thoroughly drying the area. One gentleman I met, named Harold, shared a story that resonated with many. He'd begun to notice his shoes smelling, even after buying new socks and using foot powder. It wasn't until his granddaughter, a nursing student, gently suggested washing and drying between his toes that things changed. I had never thought of it, he admitted, but once I started, the difference was immediate. The smell vanished, but more importantly, Harold said he felt like he had taken back control over something that had quietly embarrassed him for years. That sense of control, of quiet dignity, is deeply powerful, especially in older age when so many aspects of life begin to feel dictated by others. Small rituals of care, like mindfully washing between your toes, become acts of self-respect. They remind us that we still belong fully to ourselves. And now, the fifth and final spot, the scalp, especially when hair has thinned or been lost. This one might surprise some. Many people think of the scalp only when it's covered in hair. But the truth is, whether you have a full head of hair, a thinning crown, or a smooth, bald head, your scalp is still producing oil and collecting dead skin cells. For older adults, hair often becomes finer, sparser, or disappears altogether, yet the scalp remains active. When it's not cleaned thoroughly, buildup forms, and unlike younger scalps, which often get washed vigorously during shampooing, aging scalps are sometimes treated more gently or neglected entirely. Dr. Winston explained that even those who wash their hair regularly might not actually be cleaning their scalp. They lather the hair, he said, but avoid massaging the scalp, especially if it's sensitive. Over time, this allows sebum, sweat, and skin flakes to collect, creating a faint but noticeable odor. For people with bald or closely cropped heads, the temptation is even stronger to skip washing altogether, assuming it's not necessary, but the scalp, like any other part of the skin, needs attention. A man named Elias told me something I'll never forget. At 76, he had embraced his baldness for decades. I just rinsed my head in the shower, he said. Figured there wasn't much up there to fuss with. But after noticing a strange scent on his pillowcase, he started gently washing his scalp with a soft sponge and mild cleanser. Not only did the smell vanish, but he said his head actually felt lighter. Like fresh air could finally reach it again, he joked, smiling. These 5 places, behind the ears, the navel, under skin folds, between the toes and the scalp, might seem small. But together, they hold the key to a kind of comfort and confidence that many people, especially seniors, find themselves quietly craving. Not for vanity's sake, but for self-assurance. For the pleasure of knowing that you're taking care of your whole self, not just the parts the mirror sees. There's something deeply human about wanting to feel clean, not just for others, but for ourselves. That quiet satisfaction after a good shower, the sense of ease when we pull on fresh clothes, the comfort of laying our heads down at night, knowing our bodies are truly cared for. For older adults, these rituals often take on even greater meaning. They become a form of self-respect, a daily promise that we're still here, still attentive, still deserving of care. When Margaret started paying attention to those hidden spots, she told me something unexpected. It wasn't just the smell that disappeared, she said. It was the heaviness, the doubt. I started walking differently. I felt more like myself again. That's the quiet power of tending to our bodies, not in a grand or fussy way, but in a thoughtful, steady one. It restores more than freshness. It restores dignity. And in a world that so often forgets to honor aging, every act of self-care becomes a gentle kind of resistance, a reminder that we are still full of worth. This story isn't about scrubbing harder or using fancy soaps. It's about awareness. It's about permission, the permission to be curious again, to relearn things we thought we knew. And it's about pride, not in looking perfect, but in feeling whole, feeling clean, not just in the physical sense, but in the emotional one, free from worry, from the doubt, from the small voice that says, you've let yourself go. Because the truth is, you haven't. You've simply been waiting for someone to gently hand you the map again, and now you have it. So if you're someone who's quietly wondered where that strange scent is coming from, if you've pulled away from a hug, skipped a gathering, or hesitated before sitting too close to someone, you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not powerless. Start small. Pick one of those hidden spots tonight. Wash it gently. Dry it completely, and notice how you feel. Not just on your skin, but in your spirit. That's where change begins. That's where comfort returns. Not in the expensive aisles of a department store, but in the quiet steam of your bathroom, in the warmth of a towel, in the steady hands of someone who's learned that growing older isn't about losing control. It's about regaining it in ways that truly matter. And perhaps the most beautiful part is this. When we care for these hidden places, we start to feel seen again. Not by others, necessarily, but by ourselves. And in the end, that's the most powerful recognition there is. If this story spoke to something in you, something quiet, something real, I invite you to stay with us. There's so much more to explore, to rediscover, to reclaim as we grow older with grace. On this channel, we walk together through honest conversations, gentle reminders, and stories that honor the richness of your life experience. So if you haven't yet, take a moment now to subscribe. It's free, and it means you'll never miss the next message that might just change the way you see yourself, even in the smallest, most beautiful ways. And in our next video, we'll dive deeper into a topic many avoid, but nearly everyone struggles with as they age. How to care for your skin when it starts to feel paper thin, dry, or fragile. You might be surprised at how much can be healed with just a little patience and the right kind of touch. Until then, take care of yourself, gently, fully, and always with kindness.